Today what I want to do is, I'm going to cover a little bit of arithmetic. Even though we don't do a lot of that in this class, there comes a time when you have to be able to add, subtract, multiply, and divide. And so I'll show you how to do those basic four functions in JavaScript. And we'll write some programs that will also introduce some other ideas. To begin with, as you know from the way I structured this thing already, you have HTML, you have head, then in the head you have a script line, just like this. You have our language, here's JavaScript. And everything from here on down is JavaScript until you get that slash script right there. Then you finish off the head. And then you start on the body. And that's how it works. And that goes down to slash body. But you can see what happens is the HTML goes from here all the way down. It's like a sandwich. Slash HTML. And the body goes from here all the way down to here, slash body. And in the head you get the same thing. You get the head goes from here down to here, and the script goes from here down to here. You see the little packages and what goes in between them. You do what you have to do.
So, forgive me, maybe this is kind of an elementary question or something that's been covered that I should have picked up on. But you know how you mentioned you have like your HTML, your head, your JavaScript, then like, you know, slash script. Can you have more than one JavaScript? Can you have like several different JavaScript features in a page that
you don't want to do that, but you can.
But it is possible at a more advanced level?
Because script, it simply says, I'm talking a different language. You can put, some people put them down in the body. They put them all over the place.
That's what I mean. Like you could have like a JavaScript on a web page where you have to like type something in, then you have like some content which is script. Then
well, basically you can do that, but I avoid that. I have to tell you, I've been programming for half a century.
And it just gets messy.
And I programmed 50 languages, and I know how these things work. And I know that the people who set this up to give you the flexibility to do crazy stuff like that, they're wrong. Period. It's like in English, if you suppose you can say words backwards or put verbs and prepositions in the wrong places, you can't do that.
Just because you can't.
Because you have to get used to speaking your language. These guys don't understand it. They think because you can make a shortcut or do something cute, they admit it, they allow it. It's the worst thing you can do because you don't know what's allowed and what isn't. There's no way to tell. So the language is like if you start doing, you can try stuff, of course. But trying stuff has a danger too, because it might work in the instance that you tried it first, and then in another instance it may not work. So what happens is you end up believing something's true that isn't, that you got by experimentation. It is a big problem, and the more modern languages are the most dangerous too, because there's so many people in computing now that they're all pushing to do what they want to do. If Microsoft, for example, if all those guys started doing it a certain way, everyone would want to do it that way. Pretty soon we have an additional twist to the language.
So basically it can be done, it is possible, but you anyway would not recommend it at all.
Well, not in this class. If you want to do it, I don't care what you're doing.
Definitely
It's just not here because if your program has to be debugged, I have like 60 students. In comes a program to debug, and if it's all over the place, I'm going to say, I have to figure out what they did and all that.
Right.
If I get it down to a little pattern, then I can do it a lot better.
Anyway,
so let me carry on. I get some stuff I want to be sure I cover. What I'm going to do is, for a couple of minutes, I'm just going to talk about JavaScript. Just about JavaScript. I'm not going to put all the HTMLs and all that stuff in. Assume that it says up here, script, and language equals JavaScript. I'm just going to talk about what goes on in the JavaScript section. Okay, so now we're in JavaScript right here, okay? And it goes down to wherever it ends, script. So, this is what happens. When you put JavaScript in, you don't have to have functions. It's not necessary. You can have just regular, you don't have to have the word function. You can just have instructions. It's possible. But we don't want to do that. Our world is going to be like this. We want to make a web page down here, and we want to come up here, do something, and then come back down to the web page. So that's the reason why we're using these functions. These functions are nice little packages. You go to the package, does what it's supposed to do, comes back down, and then it takes care of everything. But you can have as many packages as you want. I could have function, I'm going to write them here for a second here. You get a function. I could have a function to add stuff up. Add two numbers, for example, like that. And it would start here and does something and then it ends there. Then I can have another function. We'll call it subtract. I'm just giving it these names. I just gave the name add subtract don't mean anything. I just gave it that name. Comma V. And that starts and then it ends. And then I give a function that says something else. Divide. Like so. Now it would begin, it would end, and in between it would be all the stuff. So you see, I can have as many functions as you need. And so down below here, if you want to add something, you'll go to the add function. It'll do it for you and give you the answer. If you press a button, a different button that says go to subtract, it'll go to the subtract function and then give you an answer. So in other words, you can go to different functions. You can have lots of functions. Usually, programs usually have, 4 or 5 functions in them. That's not uncommon to have a lot of functions. Because when you're down here on the page, you may have different inputs, different kind of inputs. You're talking to the machine, you're waving at it, the video's picking up your emotions. There's different kind of things coming in, so you want to have a different function to deal with everything that the person writes to you, sends in to you. So, remember that. I just want to tell you that you can have different functions. That's essential, okay? And the functions, sometimes you go to a function that doesn't have any, you don't send any arguments with it. You don't have any letters coming with it. For example, it's possible to have a function that says make a noise. You can have a function that just makes a noise if you want to. And you don't have to put any argument in here because down below you go to the noise function and you have some kind of a device in here that makes a noise and it comes back. So it doesn't need any numbers from down below. It doesn't need anything from down below. Okay? That's the first thing. The second thing I want to talk about is there's a difference. There's two kinds of variables in this language. Actually, it's more than that, but there's two kinds that we're going to use. One variable is called a string, and the other one's a number. The string and the number, even basic language, all languages have the difference between strings and numbers. And it makes sense. A string is, if you have a string variable, it's going to have words in it. If you have a numerical variable, it's going to have numbers in it. And the problem they had when they invented these languages was when you add two, or supposing you multiply two strings together. Well, what does it mean when you multiply up and down? What would you get? It doesn't make any sense. If you multiply 3 times 4, yes, but up times down doesn't make any sense. So what they did is they said, okay, we'll have some things will just be words, just strings, and other things will be numbers. They're different variables. And in this language here, what they do is they allow you to create a variable that's a string or a number just by saying you have a variable. It doesn't care which it is. And what it does is the first time you use it, that's when it cares, because the first time you use it, it tries to figure out what it is. So if you subtract something, it knows immediately, this is a number, and it turns it into a number. So in other words, when you create your variable in the beginning, when you create this variable, you don't have to tell it if it's a string or number. It's when you start using it that you have to be careful. Okay? So I want to show you how it works, how to create a variable, what it really means. Supposing, I'm going to get rid of these things. Supposing what you have is a script. Suppose you have a function and it's sending 2 words to you, like maybe the first name and last name, like we had last time. Okay, so you have a function, and we'll say the function's called name, and it's going to have 2 names. You're going to have a first name, you're going to send that to it, and a last name. So these two guys here are going to come up from down below. It's going to be the first name's in here, and the last name's going to be in here. Okay? Then what you do is you want to send something back to out1, which is down here, something called out1. So you can say out1 dot value. That's the variable down below, an input variable that you defined, just like all the other programs we did earlier, is equal to first plus space plus last. And what that'll do for you is it'll say take the string that's in here, which is Sam space Jones, add them together and send back Sam space Jones, and that's what they'll get back at out1. So as they typed in these two guys, and what they get back is the first name space the last one, whatever it is, in this position right here.
Is this how like the one program works that you had us just play with the homework? It's like your first name and your last name, Andy Lang. Your full name is Andy Lang.
Yeah.
That's how
The same program, yeah. It's the same
it
program.
arrives at a conclusion in that same way.
Now, here's where it gets tricky though. Supposing instead of gluing two names together, you want to send up two numbers and have them add together. Now, to add in a computer language is the plus sign. That's all it is, the plus sign. But you can see we're using plus signs here. But the reason why it does what it does is because it looks at this and says, oh, that's a string. It comes up as a string. Everything, all text, comes up and arrives at a string. You get no numbers in here. They always come up as strings. So everything that comes from down below, you have a little box, they type something in, they send it up. It's a string. It's a word, or words or something. So everything that comes up and down below is always text to begin with. It's text. And the thing is, suppose you want it to be a number, though. Supposing down here you said, give me your age, and you typed in a number. And then it comes up here. Well, it's going to come up here as a string, because all things come up as a string. The problem is the computer cannot add this thing that you sent it unless it converts it into a number. So in other words, these guys always come up, and they're always text, they're always a string. And if I wanted to, supposing instead of first, last, we'll call it A and B. How about A and B? Supposing these happen to be two numbers, they're really numbers, and I want to add them together and send the result down below. Here's what you have to do. It's a little bit different. First thing you have to do is you have to define a variable. You have to say, I want to make a variable, a place to hold information. So what you do is you write the letters VAR. That means you're going to create a variable that will create it for you. And then what you say is you have to give it a name. So let's call it, because we're going to add these two things together, let's give it the name sum, because we're going to add them together. This is, you make up this name. It's going to call it sum. Okay, we make a variable called sum. Okay, and then what we do is we say, okay, I want that to equal A plus B. If I do that, what's going to happen is, supposing I put 5 in here and 6 in here, what I'm going to get is 56. That's what we're going to get, because it's going to glue them together. It thinks it's a string. So it just glues the two numbers together. But we really want them to add. So here's what you have to do. You have to say, well, what we really want to do is change this into a number and this into a number. Here's how you do it. With a capital N, it's got to be an uppercase N. That word right there. Put A in there. That will convert. That's going to be uppercase right here. All the rest are lowercase. Just say number. That's why I say you always got to be careful with upper lowercase in these languages. That's the only capital letter. This is a function in itself. This is a function that built into the language. So when it sees this, it looks at A as a string and translates it into a number if it can. If it's the word hello, it won't be able to do it. But if it's 5, it will be able to do it. So therefore, you do get a number in here to start with. Then you have to do the same with the other. But now you can put the plus sign here. Now you can say number B.
But you have
Semicolon. All of these things end with a semicolon.
But you have to use a numerical character in that case for it to work. It has to be an integer of some type, or
Not an integer. It can be any number.
But I mean like a numerical character of some type.
Oh yeah, because if it's bananas, it's not going to be able to add them up. I mean, you go bananas or something like that. Okay, so basically, yeah, these have to be down below. If they type in something's not a number, it's going to give you an error. It's going to say that's not a number. It'll actually show you it's an error to blow the program. Okay, real programs where there's a danger of the user typing in the wrong thing. you have to test everything they type to see what they typed in. It's a big ordeal. And we don't want to get into that because it means that whenever someone types something, for example, suppose you did a program that say, give me the first number, give me the second number, and then it brings them up and says, now add them together, and you wrote the program like this. But this one, instead of the first number, they wrote O and E instead of 1. That won't add the word letter, that won't change the letters O and E into a number. There's no way to do that. So it'll just throw an error and say it's wrong. So in a real program, the programmers always have to say, what could they possibly do that's crazy, and we have to make sure that they can't get by us. So they'll test these things, see what they are. We don't have to do that. It's a lot of work we don't have to get into because you're running your own programs. You know what you're putting in. So there it is. This right here is the magic way to convert something. Then when it sees the plus sign, what it does, if this is 3 and 4, it adds 3 to the 4 together, it gives you 7. And that's what you get in here, you get 7. Then what you do is you send it home. You send it down here to L1 dot value equals whatever's in here, sum. Does that make sense to you? So because it takes this, calculates it, puts it in here, and then it takes it from here and puts it in the out position. So it takes a couple of steps to do it, okay? Now there may be shorter ways of doing it. In some programs they may do it shortly, but I like to do it this way because we're going to be doing a lot of weird stuff in this area, and that's why I separate these two lines. Okay, I don't let them be the same. For example, what you could have done in this program to make it shorter, you could have simply said L1.value equals that right there, and it would have worked. It would work. But for our purposes, for what we're doing, I had it done this way, and I'll show you as we go on. You'll see why I did that. So therefore, that's the whole function. That's the whole thing right there. It did the job. Send it up, and you send the answer back. Has them together. It turns out that we have all the arithmetic operators look like this. If you had down below, you said subtract the second number from the first one, you could just do this, and it would work. It would convert it into numbers, and it would do the job for you.
Could you use...
Oh, wait a second. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. Yeah, okay, right. We're good. We're good.
Could you multiply in an application like this
Yeah.
with the letter X? Would it still recognize
You can't
that?
use X. You can't use X. What you do for multiplication is an asterisk.
Okay.
That's the multiplier. It's in Fortran, it's in BASIC, it's in every language, C language, everywhere. It's everywhere. So basically, an asterisk is the multiplier in computer languages. Everybody's pretty standardized on that. Okay? And finally, the last one is divide. The divide looks like this. It's a slash leaning that way. It means that divides into this. That's the operator. That's all you need is that one operator. So those are all the operators you have in arithmetic. It's the only ones you really need. There's only one other one that we'll get to later. You got the plus, the minus, the multiply, and the divide. So those guys, you kind of have to know what they do. Okay? Not hard. But the most important part is when you're writing a program like this, is be sure, whatever you do, be sure to do a number on the thing, do a number on this thing. Because if you don't do a number on it, it's not going to work. Okay? And they'll take care of that. Then you'll be able to do calculations up there. Now, there's another thing I want to mention. This function right here, when I said var equals sum, what I've done is I've defined a new variable. I've created this thing, empty variable, and I'm putting this stuff into that variable, that equal sign right there. That's what I'm doing. Now, you can create a variable outside of a function if you want to. That's called a global variable. Let me tell you what the difference is. The variable out here, I'll call it stuff. Give it any old name. Nobody knows what you call it. Stuff. Semicolon. Don't forget, you have to put semicolons at the end of every line in this language, except not at the end of this one, and not at the end of these squiggly things. Oops, I got them all here. I missed something? Yeah, it's right here. I missed that. Okay, got to have these two guys. So don't put a semicolon here, don't put a semicolon here, and don't put a semicolon after the function you call. Okay, next question. Why would you have variables here and variables? Why would you have them in two different places? Because obviously if you go to this one, you're never going to get to that. It's outside somewhere else. The reason is because when this function comes to an end, you do something, you add sum, you get out of it right there. Sum immediately falls back to 0. So what it does is a temporary location. As long as the function's alive and operating, all the numbers are alive, Once it sends out the answer and closes the function, all that stuff disappears. Otherwise, your memory would be full of stuff adding up and adding up and adding up. So you want to reuse the function. So what they do is they say, do the calculations, give them the answer, and erase the function. Start over next time when you come in. It's a brand new function. Starts all over again. And that's what you want, see? So therefore, any variables defined inside of a function, that's between this and that, this defined, only lives inside this function. It doesn't live outside of it. It doesn't go outside. You can't use it anywhere else. Now this guy is different. When you define one up here, you can use it in this function, and you can use it in another function. You can use it in any function. No matter what you do to it, it will change properly. So if I say add 1 to stuff, that will change right there. If I go to another function and say subtract 1 from stuff, then that 1 will be taken out of there and it'll be gone. So in other words, this guy here is like the universal global variable, they call them. They talk to all the functions. It's a place where sometimes you want to store something in a function and you don't want it to die when you get out of it. You want it to stay alive, so when you go to the next function, it's still there. And that's how you do it. So for example, if I wanted this sum to stay up here too, for whatever reason, I could say this. I could say stuff equals sum. Whoops, not Sam. Sum of Sam. And then I could say 1 dot value equals sum. I can do it that way. And the reason what happens in it is because I put it in stuff, it'll stay there, it'll remain there. And whatever I do later, it'll still be up there. I can look at it, change it, add to it, subtract, whatever I want to do. Okay? So remember, that's called a global variable. And down in here, these are local. They call them local. So these are local variables, and these are global variables. Okay? That makes sense? Does everybody understand the idea of a variable? All you're doing is just saying, here's the name of it. You put numbers in it, or strings, whatever you want to put in it, but here's a variable to put it, place to put it. So then it has a handle on it. You can talk to it. Okay? So that's kind of a thing that we'll get back to because it's very handy. It's good stuff to be able to do. All right. So I want to write at least one complete program so that you can see how to do all these things. I want to make sure I didn't miss anything yet. Oh yeah, one more thing to do. One thing to do. Down below, we've used the word input. And usually in an input, supposedly it's a text input. It's not a bad. So far we only had 2 kinds of inputs. We had an input and a button, text and a button. We had both of those kinds. Okay. Suppose this one right here. We'll say ID equals sign or something. Give it any old name you want. And then type equals text. Text. But supposing, what they do is they give you room enough for, I say, in normal font, probably about 15 letters in normal size font. In other words, when you say this, it'll create automatically on your screen, it'll create an input area. Like so. The problem is, for example, if I just used the default, whatever it is, whatever length it is, people with, if I say, what's your whole name, they couldn't fit their whole names in. Of course, it would work. What would happen is they type and it would start sliding over. But you wouldn't have it. It wouldn't all be out there visible so they could see if they typed it correctly or anything. It would be kind of silly. So the thing is, sometimes what you want to do is you want to make this thing longer than it is. Okay? You can change the, they call it the width of the thing. So if you have an input and it's going to be text like that, you can create a style sheet for it. Make a space there, create the word style, equals, quote. You can say width, colon, all of this is consistent with my form. And that's 400 pixels, by the way. It's 400 pixels wide. You can put px or not, it doesn't make any difference. Width is 400 pixels. Here we go. So now what we've done is we've said we want this thing to be longer. We don't want it to be that short. We want it to go out, 400, whatever that is. So we're actually increasing the length so people can type more stuff in. Or your answers may be long. You want to be sure you have enough stuff in there. So therefore, this right here controls the width of these things that we're typing into, and it's typing back to us. It gives you a better width. The other problem you have is sometimes your font is too small and you can't see it very well. Now, supposing up in the body, let's go back to the body instruction here. And you have a style sheet. Okay, if you want to use font size, have we done this yet? Have we done this? Font size? And you can say anything you want. It's in pixels, it's height, it's the height size. Suppose you say font size is 40 or something like that. You can put PX or not, no matter what you do, it knows what you're doing. And supposing we did that. Now, what would happen is, anything you would type right here, like show me or something like that, it would come up pretty big. Say show me, like so. But the letters inside here would still be teeny weeny. It doesn't change those, doesn't affect those, because it's an input and it doesn't affect them. In other words, when you tell it you want everything in your document to be a certain size, everything on the big page will be that size, but nothing in there will be affected by it. Big problem. And the reason why is this, because they don't know how tall you made this thing. They don't know how tall it's going to be. What size is it really? So, what you have to do, in this case right here, in this input, is you have to say, semicolon, font size. 50, colon. So, okay, everything's good. So basically what you have to do is you have to tell the font size to the instruction, to the input instruction, so it'll blow it up. Then what'll happen is you'll see this kind of cool thing will happen. It'll show you like this. It'll blow up the blank space. It'll make it tall. It's ready to go. When you type into it or it types back to you, it's big, so you can read it. That's because sometimes when you got a page full of stuff, little teeny writing, especially for me, little tiny writing is a little bit hard to digest. So then we have two things. We've already done font size before. Did we do width on anything else? I don't think we did. That's about the only thing I use it for, really, is the width of that thing. So basically, all it does is now gives you the ability to make a web page, and you say, what's your first name? And they type it in. What's your last name? They type it in. Then you say, this is your full name right here. You write it in like that. Gives you a chance to widen this out. So if this name is long, you can make this longer too, if you wanted to. If you have a long name and a long name, you can put this is your name, and you can have room for the whole thing. That way you can get the space in there. And you can bring them bigger too. Okay, so there you have it. Those are, this is the kind of things I wanted to be sure that we talked about today, to be sure you got it. Do they all think it's pretty clear? Oh, it's pretty clear. Okay. Now, let's do a program. I'm going to write a program, and here's what it's going to do. It's going to ask you for two numbers. So you type in two numbers. Then it's going to give you 3 buttons. And one button is going to allow you to add the numbers. The second button is going to allow you to multiply the numbers. And the third button is going to allow you to divide the numbers. Okay? So let's read one program. There's one place, you type in 2 numbers. It says give us a number, you type it in. Give us another number, you type it in. And then what you do is you have 3 buttons. One says add, multiply, divide. Whichever one you hit, all the answers are going to go in the same spot. It's all going to go in one spot. It's going to say, the quotient is this, or the sum is that, or the product is this. So it's going to tell you not only the answer, but it's going to put down the words too. It's going to say, this is the product. So that way, it's like a calculator. You have 3 things you can do. Now, there's a program online that's going to show you that. It won't be exactly like this one, because I have a blackboard, a whiteboard. I don't have much space on it, so I'll just sort of abbreviate stuff as best I can. All right, so let's do it. So remember, here's what we want. We want to say, here's the window. We want to say, enter a number, the first number here, enter the second number here, then you got 3 buttons. Actually, why don't we put them all in the middle? That would be cool. Say enter the first number here, enter the second number here. Then you got 3 buttons, and the final answer comes out right here. Okay? So let's see what we can do. Okay, we're going to have it. Pardon me. This one's going to be add the 2 together. This one's going to be multiply. This one's going to be divide. We can put characters in there, or we can put words in. But I should say, without getting too geeky, I think using words is kind of cool because we have a room. It doesn't hurt to put a word in there. You can read it. It's like those symbols, you know, bathroom symbols. I don't know what bathroom to go to anymore. I've given up going to the bathroom. You can't read the symbols. So basically, you have to kind of think about the persons using it and realize that they're not in the same. If you get to be a programmer after a while, you get to be shortcutting and everything. They're not with you. They're you know, very, very unprogramming like in their thinking. Okay, so I'm going to write the program to start off. I'm going to have HTML. I have a head. And the head's going to go down here, blah, 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 blah. I don't quite know how much space to give it, but I'll try it right here, see what happens. Slash head. I'm not sure if this will work, so what I'll do is I won't put any of this down here until I start going, see what happens. So the first thing I'm going to do is I have to say script, right? In this case, the language. JavaScript. Now, I'm going to have 3 separate functions. Add them together, multiply them together, divide one to the other. Okay, there's going to be 3 functions. So we know there's going to be 3 functions. Let's write the 3 functions to see what they look like, okay? So the first function is going to look like this. We know we're going to come up here with 2 numbers. We're going to take the first number and the second. We're going to come up here to the add function. So you're going to say function. Call it add. It's going to receive 2 numbers. Call it A and B. You call them anything you want, but A and B is okay. So in other words, what's going to happen is they're going to type something in this, something in this. They're going to press that button. Then this and that are both going to go up and become A and B. Make sense? So now you get them up there. Next question is, you want to add them together. So immediately you got to convert them into numbers. So you can say variable. Call it sum equals number of A plus number B. Semicolon. Semicolons at the end of all those, okay? I think I'm going to drop back to 2 functions because if I put 3 down, I'm going to run out of space. Let's just do plus and multiply, okay? We'll get the third one. But it's the same thing. By the way, the programs are online, so you can see variations of those anyways. Let's just have a plus 1 and a multiply 1. So we get the first one here. We get the one that says we're going to add them together. So what we've done is we have actually it together. And now what you can do is this. Now the answer is in here. Now this is where it gets kind of funny. The out, down here is going to be an out area. And it's called out1. Dot value, just like all the out things. We don't have to call them out1, but it's good. By the way, don't use the word out on its own or in on its own without ones or something after it. There are certain words in the JavaScript language that it actually doesn't like you to use. It uses them for its own purposes. Okay, these are called reserved words in languages, and it reserves these words. And sometimes it's hard to figure out what to reserve. I mean, I've written programs. And it doesn't work. I'm saying, why doesn't this work? It's because I use some obscure reserved word. They got about 30 or 40 of them. There's a lot of them. But if you're not a computer geek, you're not likely to use them because they're mostly geeky words. So basically, if you just write normal words, you'll probably be okay. Okay, so anyway, we get this here, we're saying I want this to be equal to, quote, the sum is, space, quote, plus, now this is weird, sum, like that. Now this is going to look weird because here's what's happening. These two guys are, that's a number right there, right? But these are words. So I'm taking these words and I'm plus signing it to a number. What does that do? Words always dominate. Strings always dominate. So if it sees a bunch of words and a number, it turns that number into a string. It makes it into a string. So in other words, whatever's in there is actually now a string. So for example, if I had 3 and 4 here, and add them up gave you 7, it would say the sum is 7. It would turn it into the string 7. It would show it to you. So you'd see the sum is 7. Because we want it to come out like that down in the out 1 area. Does that make sense to you? So remember, if you have two numbers, plus adds them. If you have two strings, plus glues them together. If you have a string and a number, plus glues them together. Because the string dominates, in other words, the words dominate over numbers. They had to make a decision, and that's how they did it, which is perfectly fine. And that is the end of the function. That function is done. Well, let's do the multiply function. So you have another function, completely different one. And call it multiply. Set up A and B still. They're the same letters really. And then, why did I do that? Function. So then what I say is I have to have a variable here. And I'm going to call it the product equals number of A times number of B. Like so. Does that make sense to you? I made up this variable called product, and I just added, I multiplied those two numbers and put the answer into product. I'm going to do the same thing I did here. I send it back out to the same area. So I say, well, okay, L1 dot value is equal to the product is space plus product. Those two don't get mixed up. This is a word. Everything in these quotes is just a word. It's part of the string. This right here is a variable, and that's whatever number's in that. That's what's going to be in the string. And so that's going to send it. That's going to send it back down below to the out here. Yep.
So we need to leave the space after the word is, right?
One more time.
Do we have to leave the space after the word is?
After the word
Is, yeah, the product is.
right here.
Space.
Yes. Yes, because let's suppose they said the sum is 6. That's what would happen if you don't put that space inside the quote marks. Once you put inside the quote marks, the space is it, and the 6 is over
You
here.
would just translate it weirdly, basically.
Well, that happens a lot. I mean, you even see that in commercial programs. If you forget to put spaces in it, and everything comes out kind of weird. If you ever see a program online that does it, that's what they did. They forgot to put the space in the quote mark there. Very common. Okay, so far so good. Now we get all the functions done. Now we have to actually do the program down, do this part right here. Okay, so I'm going to, I call this one add, and I call this multiply. You send two things out. So can I get rid of this? You guys get this written down someplace, or a picture of it, or whatever you want. But assume that this is all done now. That part's done. Now what you have to do is, down here, I say /script, leave, /head. Now I'm ready for the body. So I'm gonna erase this and do the body of the same program. Okay, let's do the second part. Will you be able to deal with that, or do you want me? I could write it over there if you want.
That would be wonderful if you could.
You really have it over there?
I should turn my phone on.
Okay, but I have to get rid of this then. I can't get rid of this. This is how okay, I'll do it right here. This is the new program part right here. This is the body right here.
Trying to be one of those amazing students who like
And
turn
have
their
body.
cell phone off completely in class, but then has to turn it on and let it warm up and take a picture of it.
Okay, body. We want to center the thing. So we say style equals quote. How do you center it?
Text hyphen align colon center.
Everybody know that? Center. Oh, done. That's done. Now everything's going to be sort of centered like this right here. So now what we're going to do is we're going to say the words. We're going to say enter first number. Number. That will give you this part right here. Enter first number. And then we're going to have an input. Type equals text. Text. ID equals, give it a name, call it F9. I just made that up, F9, whatever. And that's it. So now we're going to have an input area. It has the name F9, that's what it's called, F9, okay? Then I want to do, now I just did this and I just did that. Now I want to do this one right here. So I say enter. By the way, I should put a BR here, huh? Make sure that it goes down to the next line. Okay, put a BR and say enter second number. My writing's not so cool. If you guys can't read it, let me know. Input. Type equals text. ID equals second number. BR. Okay, so there it is. This is input type equals. By the way, don't forget the spaces here. This space right here, here, and space right here. Each one of these is like independent. Okay, this thing right here has got a space right here, and then after you say text quote, there's a space right here, and that's it. You don't need more spaces. You're all set. Okay, so now we have. If we've done that, we now have. They can type in, and they can type in here. Then they have to hit one of these two buttons. Okay, so we have to have two buttons. So the first button's going to have a plus sign on it. We'll put the words plus right on it. So we say, okay, we want an input. Input. And type equals button. Okay, and value equals, the value being what's on the button right there, equals, let's say add. And on click, I'm going to back up over here a little bit. On click, this would be actually right over here, okay? On click equals quote. We want to go to that function right there, add. And I want to take these two guys with me. Whoops, these two guys with me. I want to take fnum and snum. So you take fnum dot value, comma, snum dot value. Quote, close. There it is. So what I've done is this line right here now allows you to create this thing that's created. And when you click on it, it'll take these two variables right here, these two names, and it'll send them up to A and B. Now, fnum will become A and snum will become B. Does that make sense? So it's just a simple call. And now, the second button right here. I'm not going to put a BR after this because I want the second button right next to it. I did it with wonder, so right next to it, just say input. Type equals button. Just to be safe, from the old days, we had to do this, I think you still do, put a quarter on the button. You may not require that anymore, but I'm not sure about it. I'm not positive that all the browsers are rigged to that yet, but I think they are. But a quote is safe. Value of this one equals multiply. Because now you're going to go to this function over here and multiply. You're not going to go to that one anymore. So you want to multiply. So you put multiply on the button right here. Multiply on this button. And then you say on click equals quote. You want to go to this function now. Multiply. Then take the same variables, f num and s num. F num dot value, comma s num dot value, close quote v, close quote v. That's it. So now you get both buttons. They're all done. Now you just have to put this guy down here, where the answer is going to go. It's going to say, the answer is going to be long. It's going to be the sum is a number, or the product is a number. So your box down here has to be big enough to take all those words, okay? You might want to make that a little bit bigger, but I'm going to leave it up because we're going to remember right on this thing. But you might want to make the width bigger if it isn't big enough. But in other words, you just simply add the width, the style sheet with the width in it. That's all you have to do. But here's what we do. We have an input area whose ID equals, quote, out1, quote, quote, type equals text. Text. Close. Finally, you get slash body and slash HTML. As I say, these are online and they're written much better than this. But the idea is, let's just run the program now. I run the program, that screen comes up. It says enter first number right here. So you type in some number, type in 3. Type in 3 right here. Now you can hit the tab, it'll drop down to the next entry point. This says type in the second number. So you type in 4. So you typed in 3 and 4. And now if you hit this button right here, what it'll do is it'll go to add. Go to the add routine, add the 3 and the 4, come out with 7. Let's say the sum is 7. Okay, that's what it'll do. Even after you hit that number, then you can hit the number if you want to hit that one, it will still work. It'll go up and it'll jump to the other one. It'll see the 3 and the 4, and it'll say multiply. Okay, 3 times 4 is 12. Product is 12. It'll say the product is 12. No, they both work. And whichever one you press will be the one that will show up on the screen. The other will fail. It'll disappear. So what do you think? Does that look bad to you guys?
Mind-boggling.
Mind-boggling. It is. We aren't going to spend a lot of time on arithmetic. This is a very short-term thing, right? But here's the reason why I touch arithmetic, because we're going to make things move around on the screen. They're going to rotate, move around. You got to put them in certain spots, and they do things. So once you've got stuff dynamically doing stuff, you're always going to have some arithmetic, some way to add. You know, I want to go a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right, a little bit to the right. You got to be able to add stuff. Question?
Yes. To put the lowest box below the 2 buttons, should I put a BR after that multiply line?
Thank you. Which one was the second one, right?
Yes.
The second one right here, yes. Should be good. BR should be there. Right, it should be after this one, so you get that. That's right. Good job. Good job. Yeah. That's the worst writing I've ever seen in my life. By the way, I forgot to tell you, you also get a 3 credits in hieroglyphics when you leave this class. You get more than you bargained for. Okay, so I think, no other questions? Okay, I think we've covered everything I want to cover today. Starting next week, I'm going to start using more interesting functions. We just had to get these things out of the way. We'll start using more interesting functions. Part of the thing is when people type stuff in, they don't type type in what you think they're going to type. Like if you say, what's your first name? They might type something like, my first name is John. You know, you go, what's their first name? You got to find John out of all that stuff they typed. So the trick in computing a lot of times is trying to figure out what people are saying to you, what are they doing? And we're not going to get deeply into it, but I'm going to show you what the problems that arise and how you can easily deal with some of them. Some of it you can just fix right away. Fortunately, when we start talking to the machine, Google does the translation for us, so whatever they say, we can capture the words we want and get rid of the words we don't want. Google will tell us what they said, and we can grab the words we want. So when we talk to it, we actually have a better way of dealing with everything. It's kind of strange, but when you type the stuff in, that's where it gets tricky. Okay, so with that, I'm going to resort to the computer overhead. You guys can stay or leave, whichever you like. Okay? So, give me a minute to get this clean. We had one semester, I don't know what happened, but we had bad markers. They really were hard to erase. You couldn't clean the board. And most of the times people teach math in here, there's some other classes. And
all these gen ed classrooms, you can almost tell there's been like a
well,
Spanish class as well.
They came out, so what I did was, at the end of my class, I couldn't get rid of everything. So I would write a couple of words like in French or something and make them like that. So they thought I was the French teacher. They never caught me.